I thought that if I tried hard enough, you would bless me and you would set me free. How is this working? So I started getting angry with him, and it wasn't until I got to Romans 6 and I understood that no. It starts with you being identified with Christ and his death. See, because you can't work off your sin. You can't get out of your sin. When I was united with Christ in his death, I was freed from the penalty, and it comes through being united with his death and resurrection that I'm freed from the power of sin. And you know what? That was huge for me. And it was probably a couple months. I kept kind of struggling with that sin just here and there. And we're going to get more into how you're going to deal with that in a little bit. But eventually that struggle with that temptation subsided. And it was about 2 years of just freedom from that struggle, freedom from that particular temptation in my life. And then I'm in the midst of Bible college. Bible college, of all places, holy ground. I'm reading the Bible every day. I'm thinking about Scripture 24/7. If I'm not thinking about it, I'm trying to apply it. I mean, I am praying in the morning, reading my Bible for my quiet time, going to class, reading my Bible every day, talking about the Bible with people. And and in the midst of that, I mean, that was a real-time experience of Romans chapter 7. I mean, I was in the midst of the struggle. And you know what I started to wonder? I started to look at the struggle, and I started to define the struggle as my definition of maturity. You know what I said? Thank you very much. Excuse me, this is very attractive. I'm sure this is great. All right. You know what I said about the struggle in that moment? You know what I started to wonder? I started to define the struggle like this. You know, in the midst of the struggle, I started to wonder, you know what? God, maybe I'm not as mature as I thought I was. Maybe I'm not as faithful of a Christian as I thought I was. God, if I'm struggling with this, am I really freed from the power of this sin? If I was, why am I struggling so much with it? Worse yet, if I sin, I was tempted to think that, you know what? I never went to this point, but maybe this Christianity thing really doesn't work. Maybe God's really not real. Worse yet, maybe I still believe in God, but maybe I'm not a Christian. I think that one of the biggest struggles with the struggle, if I can say it that way, is that as Christians, we often misinterpret the struggle, and we think that the presence of the struggle is a mark of immaturity. That the presence of the struggle is a mark of unfaithfulness. That the presence of the struggle, and worse yet, if we sin, we'll start to keep a track record of that sin. And as we keep a track record of that sin, you know what we eventually start to do? We eventually start to wonder whether or not we actually are Christians at all. Worse yet, we might even get to the place where we start to actually question whether or not God is real and whether or not Christianity works. You know what? The struggle does say something about who you are. But here's the problem. All of those things that I just listed to you, if you are a Christian, those are lies. And the enemy wants you to believe those about you. The enemy wants you to believe that with the presence of struggle means that you are immature. The enemy wants you to believe that the presence of the struggle means you are unfaithful. The enemy wants you to believe that the presence of the struggle means that you are still bound to sin. But you know what? Those are all lies. You know what the struggle actually means? It means something completely different. For the Christian, the struggle is actually evidence that you are a Christian. The struggle for the Christian is the very evidence that you are a Christian.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
You're saying, but wait a minute, I don't want to struggle, and you're telling me that the struggle is bad. Well, no. If we go on in Romans 8 and you go to the last, probably verses 21 to 25. We're not going to read them. But if you read them, what you're going to see is that Paul talks about creation groaning for the freedom of the presence of sin. You see, it says that our bodies, we yearn for the moment when we're going to be freed from the presence of sin. And you know when God says that moment's going to be?
This is a demonstration
at the redemption of our bodies. Guess what? That is not this life. You and I will always live in the presence of sin while we're here. If you're a Christian, yes, you are freed from the penalty of sin. Yes, you are freed from the power of sin, but you are not yet freed from the presence of sin. And so, your body yearns for it. You desire to be freed from the presence of sin. Paul is going to say, then you hope for that moment. But you do not define your experience in this moment as meaning that it's a mark of immaturity or a mark of unfaithfulness, because no. What the struggle means is the struggle actually means you are a Christian. And you will one day be freed from the presence, and you hope, look forward to, with expectation that that day is coming. But it is not today. Now, don't get me wrong, there's things we can do. There's things we can do with the struggle, and we're going to talk about that. There's things that we can do to minimize the effect of the struggle. Yes.
Of Wirecast.
There might be even years where you are freed from a particular struggle with sin, a particular temptation. There might be years of that. But please do not mistakenly think that the fact that you're not struggling with this temptation right now means that is the exact mark of how you become mature. And worse yet, when the struggle comes, this is really the big thing. When the struggle comes, please do not interpret that. Please do not believe the lies of the enemy that will say to you, well, because I'm struggling with this right now, it must mean I'm not mature and I'm not a Christian. No, Paul wants us to understand something completely different. Go with me to chapter 8, verse 1. Paul wants us to know this. For the Christian,